The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time is often praised for containing the perfect experience of what it means to play a Zelda game. It was quickly followed up by a direct sequel, Majora's Mask. While Majora's Mask is known for its gritty approach to storytelling, it is not quite true that Ocarina of Time is its more cheerful counterpart. If you know where to look, the truth may surprise you on how tragic the game actually is. My name is Vortexxy Gaming, and I'll be joining Game Over Jesse in his search for the answer to a question that's been around since the release of Ocarina of Time. Do sages need to die in order to be awakened?
After we become an adult in Ocarina of Time, we are told we must gather all of the sages in order to stop Ganondorf. We are told to look in each of the temples for its respective sage. Saria in the Forest Temple, Darunia in the Fire Temple, Princess Ruto in the Water Temple, and so on. Seems straightforward enough, and at the end of the game they all work together to seal Ganondorf. Happy ending, right? Well, not exactly. Ocarina of Time gives strong evidence that to become a sage you must first die, and that not you, but your spirit goes on to become the sage. This can also be seen in Twilight Princess in the scene showing Ganondorf being sent to the Twilight Realm. All of the sages have a spiritual or ghostly presence with no face. Assuming these are the same sages from Ocarina of Time, it would make sense that over time the spirit would eventually lose all characteristics of its past self, and truly take on a spiritual form, which is why they take different forms outside their respective temple, an example being Rauru appearing as an owl in Hyrule. However, for this to be true, Saria, Darunia, Princess Ruto, Impa, Nabooru, and even Rauru must all either be dead or die in the game. After all of that, Ocarina of Time isn't looking so bright and colorful now, is it? This brings up the question though, if a sage dies and their spirit ascends to become a sage, wouldn't that sage remain the sage for the duration of the timeline? After all, a spirit or a soul can't die again, can it?
Well, we have evidence to support that this is not the case. An easy example would be the Poe souls in the Forest Temple and in the graveyard. They vanish once defeated, and the same goes for the ghost of Ganondorf, known as Phantom Ganon. Perhaps once a soul or spirit ascends, it can survive until all of its energy or power has been used, giving them enough time to complete their task or any unfinished business they may not have done when they were alive, which is why Dampé's ghost and the Poe brother spirits remain. They need to pass on knowledge before finally resting in peace. I believe this second death can carry over to other spirits as well, such as the sages.
I hypothesize that the power span of regular non-leader sages after having been awakened, or in other words, have died and then sent to the Sacred Realm, is extinguished after enough time has passed. This is why the child timeline does not need new sages, while the adult timeline does need a new set of sages. The 7 years in between made the difference regarding the power that the old set of sages held. The ancient sages seen in Twilight Princess were forced to execute Ganondorf for his crimes, but they were not able to overpower him while he held the Triforce of Power. The fact that their leader, the young princess, had not been awakened yet in this era complicated matters further. This set of ancient sages had lost most of their abilities as time has passed, and had to resort to other methods of execution. They were no longer able to access the Sacred Realm to trap Ganondorf, and were forced to use the Twilight Realm, a place they almost considered a trash chute at that point, but a trash chute with no return.
The Legend of Zelda shows that seals and magic naturally weaken over time, no matter how much energy was poured into crafting the prison. This is seen in many games. Ganondorf broke the seal in the beginning of the Wind Waker, partially broke the seal during the Imprisoning War, escaped the Twilight Realm in Twilight Princess, and the imprisoned made many attempts in Skyward Sword. There is one exception: the seal placed on Hyrule after the Great Flood. Since the seal was caused by divinity, whether that was the Triforce or goddesses directly is up for interpretation. It was not possible to break it by any mortal means. That is the reason why Ganondorf circumvented the seal. The seal that kept Ganondorf, the King of Hyrule, and the land of Hyrule locked under the sea was never broken. Not until it was reversed by the wish made by the Triforce, by the King of Hyrule, to wash away the past and to bring hope to a new world onto the sages.
Raeru is an ancient sage, likely part of the sages seen in Twilight Princess. Since he had been responsible for constructing the Temple of Time during the Era of Chaos, Ra'Eru is likely well over a few hundred years old. Interestingly enough, Ra'Eru is never witnessed outside of the Sacred Realm. This could have two possible explanations. The first being is that he no longer has a physical form. It had withered away over the years, leaving a spirit behind resembling his old self. The second possibility is that he does have a physical body, but he is not allowed to leave. He has been appointed as the sole guardian of the Triforce and was considered the last bastion standing between evil and the Triforce. Twilight Princess seems to suggest the former, as all the ancient sages are shown as ethereal beings with nothing to identify them other than their crests. The only possibility for Ra'Eru to communicate with the outside world is either by summoning others to the Sacred Realm or by conjuring a different form outside. He chose the guise of Kapura Gabora to guide the young Link on his journey, as he had sensed the destiny in the young boy. The appearance of the owl will be considered less intimidating than his real ethereal form.
Saria entered the forest temple after hearing the pleas made by the forest spirits. "Great, you're safe! I knew I would hear from you again. I'm in the forest temple. The forest spirits were calling for help, so I went to check it out, but it's full of evil monsters. Help me, Link!" The tainted state of the forest temple was able to be sensed all throughout the Lost Woods. An evil wind is blowing from the direction of the forest temple. Saria left, saying, "I have to do something about it." Saria went to investigate, likely believing she could soothe or aid the forest spirits, but she was captured almost immediately and dragged into the forest temple. Saria, as a frail Kokiri, stood no chance against Phantom Ganon and his ilk. Once you awaken her, she says, "Because I know you. No, you don't have to explain it to me. Because it is destiny that you and I can't live in the same world. I will stay here as the forest sage and help you." But Saria, despite having lost her life, keeps her promise that she made earlier in the game. As Link is warped out of the Sacred Realm, she whispers that she will always remain his friend. And the most damning of them all, Mido mentioning after he awakens Saria, "Oh, I see. Saria won't ever come back." Why would he say that? Because she died.
Darunia perished in his fight against Volvagia as he did not have the Megaton hammer. He remarks, right before entering the fray, that he does not expect to win since he does not have the legendary weapon left behind by the great Goron hero. "I will go on ahead to try to seal off the evil dragon. I'm concerned though, because I don't have the legendary hammer. But I have no choice, Link. I'm asking you to do this as my sworn brother. While I'm trying to deal with your dragon, please save my people. The prisoner cells are in the opposite direction. I'm counting on you, Link." He seemed aware he would not make it, but felt compelled to stall the dragon so Link would have the time to free the captured Gorons. Darunia is the only one who went to the temple with the immediate intention of sacrifice.
Princess Ruto manages to enter the boss room before you have, but she is nowhere to be found physically. She does, however, cry out that the water in the room is no ordinary water. After Morphe is defeated and Link is taken to the Sacred Realm, Ruto says, "As a reward, I grant my eternal love to you." Well, that's what I wanted to say, but I don't think I can offer to you that now. I have to guard the water temple as the Sage of Water. Now I ask you, why would she say this when only hours before she said never forget the vows they made and that she requests Link's help as she's going to be his wife? She knows that she can no longer pursue Link because she has died, and in order to perform her duties, she has to let go of her mortal love. While this can be interpreted that she no longer can physically leave the water temple at the moment, and that's the reason why she can't be together with him, she probably could have worded it differently in that case. She could have said something along the lines of, "Once we defeat Ganondorf, we can finally meet together," instead of flat out giving up. The 6 sages are not required to remain within their temples if there's no evil to seal. Oh, you. If I'm right, Link? You're Link, aren't you? It's me, your fiance, Ruto, Princess of the Zoras. I never forgot the vows we made to each other 7 years ago. You're a terrible man to help me kept waiting these 7 long years. You have to help me. This is a request from me, the woman who's going to be your wife.
A terrible thing has happened. The evil shadow spirit has been released. Impa, the leader of Kakariko village, had sealed the evil shadow spirit in the bottom of the well, but the force of the evil spirit got so strong that the seal of the well broke and it escaped into the world. I believe Impa has gone to the Shadow Temple to seal it up again, but she will be in danger without any help. Since Impa had already ventured into the Shadow Temple far before Link had, he is racing against time to reach Impa before she succumbs to the darkness. Impa remarks after being awakened, "It is up to you to protect the princess," implying she can no longer fulfill her destined Sheikah duties, because she's no longer among the living. "I have to stay here. You go to Princess Zelda's side and protect her on my behalf."
Nibiru's fate is the most ambiguous. Twinrova made it very clear that Nibiru was to be controlled, not killed, right before resuming the brainwashing process on Nibiru after she had broken free. Koume and Kotake remarked that they will make her work for the Great Ganondorf. Nibiru is hit in the back by a ball of magic and vanishes. She is not seen until after Link enters the Sacred Realm. One possibility is that Nibiru had been captured by Twinrova and confined by magic. Twinrova intended to brainwash her again after getting rid of the intruder, but they died before they could get to her, causing the magic to implode, possibly killing Nibiru. Nibiru makes no obvious remarks that she might consider herself dead as the others have, no mentions of having to stay behind, and no longer able to be with someone else. This could be a simple case of Nibiru and Link not being close. Saria was Link's childhood friend, Darunia his sworn brother, Ruto his quote-unquote fiancé, and Impa had been helping Link throughout the game. Nibiru only saw Link once, and she had intended to exploit him to gain the treasure of the Spirit Temple.
Now we will move towards evidence of the sages as a group being dead, as opposed to each individually, and comparing them to Zelda as the leader of the sages and to other sages from other games. Inside Ganon's tower, you are tasked with solving the puzzles of each room housing a sage. The 6 sages are depicted as translucent, spirit-like, and are able to appear and vanish at will. This is very unlike Princess Zelda, who does not seem to possess any of these ghost-like abilities. This could indicate that the 6 of the 7 sages are deceased. Some additional information to show you that the set of sages could potentially have different rules to their ascension or praying requirements.
In the Wind Waker, it is shown that the sages powering the Master Sword must both be alive and present within their respective temples. Ganondorf seems to be aware of this fact and henceforth targets the Sage of Wind and Earth to annul their prayers. In Ocarina of Time, he does not know the whereabouts of any of the sages. He sought to kill them, however, because he knew they were instrumental in opposing him. His plan was simple: lure each sage to their respective temple by tainting the temples with darkness. Each sage would feel the call of the sacred realm and venture into their temple, and be killed. Ganondorf himself would never have to lay a single finger on any of them, or spend years trying to hunt them down.
Finally, we make our way to Zelda. I think Princess Zelda is a special case and an exception to the normal rule that applies to the sages. After all, she is a sage, and she hasn't died yet, has she? Well, you're half right. Zelda is alive and well, but thanks to Skyward Sword, we know that Zelda contains the spirit of the goddess Hylia inside of her. With Hylia sacrificing herself and being reincarnated as Zelda, this would allow Zelda to become a living sage, as the spirit inside of her has already left its physical form.
However, Zelda, just like Link, cannot fulfill her duties as a child. Similar to how Link needed to become an adult to fulfill his destiny as a hero, Zelda also needed to become an adult before receiving her powers from being a sage. This is why as a child we see Zelda as a normal Hylian. However, once she becomes of age, she learns a great deal of magic, which likely comes from the spirit inside of her awakening as she becomes an adult. She is able to transform herself to her secret counterpart, Sheik. She is able to speak telepathically just as some of the other sages, and she is able to use enough power to keep Ganon from moving. However, this brings up the question of the sages in the other games and Zelda's role as a sage. I think this can be explained easily. For example, in A Link Between Worlds and A Link to the Past, a 7th sage appears as well as Zelda. This would mean that Zelda is no longer acting as a sage. I think this is due to, once again, Zelda in those games being too young to act in the role of a sage. So another sage is appointed to the position until her power is awakened. This is similar to how a queen regent works in our real world, where a close blood relative, usually a guardian, will reign temporarily until the heiress can take over.
I would like to take this time to thank all of you for watching this Zelda theory and subscribing to this channel. I would also like to give a special shout out to AnglaKey for supporting this channel on Patreon. If you would like to support this channel as well, please head over to patreon.com/GameOverJesse and check out all the tiers for cool prizes and giveaways. Have your topics discussed in a future video, have access to early videos and scripts, have your ideal made into a video, join us on future theories or discussion videos, have yourself drawn as if you were an anime or Zelda character like the ones shown here, and much more.